Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Committee of Adjustment meeting. Can everybody that's zooming in, can you hear? Megan, can you hear? Teresa can, Megan, Lori?
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you. So we'll continue. First of all, I'll ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. We have a resolution that we adopt the minutes from February 8th. So if I could have a mover and seconder, thank you. And Steve. Okay, so the resolution is number COAR 2022-08, moved by Councillor Marchant, seconded by Councillor Kirky, that we adopt the Committee of Adjustment minutes of February 8th, 2022. All in favor? Carried. The next one is the applicant is Megan Hughes on behalf of property owners Chris and Lorena Thompson. And this is a requesting for a minor variance. And again, I need a mover and a seconder so we can open it for discussion. Okay, I'll go to this side, so I'll go with Councillor Moore and Councillor Scott. So it's COAR 2022-09, moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Scott. Application 2022-01, applicant Megan Hughes on behalf of property owners Chris and Lorena Thompson to grant the requested variance as in accordance with the following: to permit a partial second story and an addition to the existing dwelling. The dwelling and proposed addition are located within 30 meters of the shoreline. Section 3-23A2 of the zoning bylaw does not permit an increase in volume within the required front yard, which is 30 meters for the residential SR zone. The existing dwelling is one story and has a floor area of 70 square meters. The proposed dwelling, including the partial second story and the addition, is to have a gross floor area of 165 square meters. The conditions are that the applicant construct the dwelling in accordance with the drawings received with the application and survey prepared by Miller and Urso Surveying, Inc., dated January 21st, 2022. The proposed development meets the four tests of a minor variance, but I open the floor for comments or questions. And if you have any, just to go over, the building is on the original footprint. It's followed site plan control. The septic is passed, and they're not moving closer to the lake. And it was a correction, the gross floor is 165 square meters. Are there any objections?
No objections on that.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions? In which case, I will call for a vote. So the proposed development meets four tests of minor variance. All in favor? Passed unanimously. So I won't ask for who's against.
Oh, there's Penelope.
So for those of you that are listening, okay, Penelope's on there now.
I was there. I apologize. I didn't have the video on properly.
I'm sorry, not a problem. So I called for a vote. Were you for or against? Because I didn't see you.
For.
Okay, thank you. And now that I see you're there, I can say, yes, it is unanimous.
Thank you.
So I'll pass that over now. Okay. I will sign, and then you just want me to put my mask on. I'm ready. Okay, you ready? Thanks. You just want to make Megan aware of.
Yeah, it's just, Megan, it's just a 20-day appeal period. And that's till April the 4th. There's no appeal, to the building permit.
Perfect.
Okay, well, thank you, and we will move on
Thank you very
to,
much.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go to mover and the seconder to adjourn this meeting. Okay, Councilor Scott, Councilor Turkey. So it's number COAR 2022-10, moved by Councilor Scott, seconded by Councilor Turkey, that the committee adjustment meeting be adjourned at 6:07. According to the good old fashioned clock PM. All in favor? Carried. I thank Paul for being here tonight and the rest of us.
So at this time, we're going to pause the live feed until 6:30.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to welcome everybody to our Tuesday, March 15th Township of Nipissing meeting. Guests, welcome all, and we'll get on. We've got a pretty big agenda tonight, so we'll try to get on with it now. So I'll ask council first if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest. And seeing none, we'll go on to staff reports. I have one from Township of Nipissing Fire, CEMC, and bylaw officer. And Chief Bateman's here, he's looking at that. If you have any questions. On the municipal bylaw part, these were, you were educating them about the correct or proper place to.
Yeah, so we did some education with people that were parking on the side of the road to gain access to properties without driveways. And we had some people that decided to park on hills while we were trying to plow. So we educated and worked, helped them out to get a tow truck and stuff. Just doing a little bit of education.
Good, thank you. And okay, as far as playground equipment, I'll be throwing that over to the rec committee when we get to number 13. Okay. So no other staff reports because most of them will be included in these other reports that we'll have tonight. So if there are no other staff reports, we will go to committee reports and we'll start with Councillor Moore.
Yes, we did have a museum board meeting on March 2nd. We discussed the budget. We renewed the museum manager's contract and she's agreed to work again this year between May and October. We'll be researching new candy suppliers for the candy store. The township admin gave us a strategic plan questionnaire and most of those items have been addressed in the budget. Next meeting, April the 6th. Recreation meeting on March the 7th. We received, we reviewed the family fundscape, went over really well. The paint afternoon for March 26th is not full yet. We need a minimum of 8 people, so we're just waiting to see if that's going to fill up, if we can go ahead with it. We plan the Easter egg hunt for April the 16th. Plenty of interest in the children's soccer. I think that's going to go over really well. We are down to the choice of 2 different playground equipments, which we will discuss further down the agenda. And we also went over some strategic plan review questions. That's it, unless Steve has anything to add to that.
No, I'm just waiting for the call to tell the guard.
Okay.
Okay, any questions regarding that? If not, Councillor Marchant.
Nothing report. I'm just waiting on the annual meeting for the veterinary clinic.
It should be soon.
Yeah.
'Tis the season. Councillor Kirky.
Library, current library services update. So they're following the provincial mandates now instead of the municipal mandate that they were following previously. So they're 100% capacity now, no passport required. Computers are available to the public with 1 hour limit. Life lab services are continuing Monday and Thursdays with the same safety protocols, and all current events are returned to in person. Many are right now, they're in the hybrid form, but I guess within a few days they'll be back to normal. The library is going to operate at reduced hours still for a while until we can sort out our next budget. And we're still waiting for the decision on the Trillium Resilience Grant. Get an answer for that in March. And our next meeting is on March 28th at 6 p.m.
Okay, good. Any questions for Councillor Kirky?
Wondering, what was that Trillium grant for that they applied for?
That was for the outside reading gazebo
Oh, yes.
and benches and that.
Okay, Counselor Scott.
We did have a rec meeting, but I was unable to attend. This was able to fill in for me, and very grateful.
Graciously did that. Hey, and it seems it's a season of canceled meetings or postponed. Last Monday, I was supposed to have a Sturgeon Nipissing French water meeting, the advanced meeting to determine the lake levels of Lake Nipissing and whatever for the summer. That was supposed to go at 1 o'clock on Monday afternoon. And at 1:45, we just all got an email that said, meeting canceled, will be rescheduled. And that was it, you know? So evidently one of the big players, which would be Parks Canada or on Power or Hydro or Government of Canada, has chosen not to make it, and the M&R, of course. So it's going to be rescheduled, I heard today, and it'll be this Thursday from 1 to 4. So at our next meeting, I'll be able to tell you if you're going to be paddling your canoe or walking to your islands this year. The other meeting I had was the East Home meeting. And at the last meeting, the temporary wage enhancement has continued, but now the government is suggesting that it will be continued forever. Okay, it's been suggested that the government will make this permanent, but no one knows who's going to pay for it. It'll be quite a boost there, but they don't know. At the same time, RNs, we haven't got any money yet, but our RNs are to get a one-time payment from the government of $5,000 to help them over this, all the issues that went with COVID. So that would be great. And of course, the other unions said it should go to everybody, and that would be lovely if it would indeed, especially if our levy wasn't paying for it. The initial on-site visits have begun in preparation for the building work and air system improvement that will take place this summer. It's interesting with the construction people, they wondered if they went in and looked at the windows and they said, could we just board up this wing for now? There's people in all those rooms and they just thought they could board up the windows from now until the 1st of April. We said, no, can't do that. But when you come back in April, you can do one room a day. So we'll move them out, you do the windows and they'll be back that night. So we'll see how that works out. I have a feeling, you know. There are continued staffing issues due to COVID, more than COVID, but COVID exposures. Staff may not have COVID, but they may have somebody in their family that does. They're still off 5 days. So it has been very difficult being staffed. Now, because the government, as Steve mentioned, has removed a lot of the protocols, but left a lot of them in senior citizens' homes. Tomorrow, there's a webinar on COVID controls as we move into the future. Because frankly, they don't know what they're going to be and if we're still on site testing and that kind of thing. I know I was there yesterday and to sign some papers, and the deal was I come through the door, I get tested. So we meet in the parking lot, sign on the old sign on somebody's back and get it done that way because try to avoid the tests. Also at the last meeting, it was the auditor's report was presented and a clear report was released. The financial report was submitted and the budget for 2022 was presented. We have since received our levy request. When anybody asks what their taxes go towards, East Home went up 5%, 3% for general and 2%. They considered it a COVID complement. So 5% increase. So, and that's well over 100,000, 150,000. So big increase, and I know Chris is going to go over other increases when we look at budget tonight. And the next meeting for East Home is next Wednesday, March 23rd. It's the annual general meeting where anybody from any of the townships, so the mayor's councils, they'll come and we try to sell the budget to them, you know. But in East Home's defense, it is the same as ambulance and whatever. It's a board and you pay the bills, or that's basically it, you pay the bills. So any questions about East Home? Like I said, next meeting, I can tell you about water. So with that, I think that ends committee reports. So we can move on to number 4, and that's to adopt minutes. So I need a mover and seconder to adopt. Okay, I saw Councillor Marchant. And just for those in the audience that may be not aware, we get all this information, the agenda over a week ago, and all the other pertinent information we get usually on Friday before. So we have had time to look at this. We've gone over the minutes, we've gone over everything like that. And now it's just the decision is whether to accept them or not, or if there's any conditions that we need to make on them. Right now, we have Councillor Marchant and Councillor Moore. So I will read the resolution. It's number R 2022-47, moved by Councillor Marchant, seconded by Councillor Moore, that the minutes of the council meeting held February 22nd, 2022 be adopted as published. All in favor? Carried. Okay. And if you're following along in your agenda, we are at number 5. This is a zoning bylaw amendment to remove holding zone on property located along Highway 534. This part of our meeting is declared a public meeting pursuant to the provisions of Section 34(12) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, to discuss an application for change to zoning bylaw 2020-20 by the Township of Nipissing. I'm going to ask John Paul first of all. Have we received any correspondence regarding this?
We have one letter on file in support of the application.
One letter in support of the application. I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder, and then I'll ask if anybody has any questions. Now, has
Patrick's done a report also.
okay, his recommendation
And
is
his
in
planner's
here.
recommendation.
Yeah, and it has been circulated. Good, okay, so I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Kirky and Councillor Scott. And I'm going to read the resolution and then ask for comments or questions. So it's number R 2022-48, moved by Councillor Kirky, seconded by Councillor Scott. That we pass bylaw number 2022-10, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2020-20 for the removal of a holding H symbol as amended. And then I'll ask for any comments or questions on this now. I think it's really quite clear, and Patrick has done an excellent job, and we've had this discussion with Mr. Goodrich the last time he was here. So does anybody have any questions? Because if not, I will call for vote. Seeing none. So moved by Councillor Kirky, seconded by Councillor Scott, that we pass bylaw number 2022-10, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2020-20 for the removal of a holding symbol as amended. Read a first, second, and third time and passed this 15th day of March 2022. All in favor? Carried, unanimous. Thank you, and
That was the best presentation I never had to make.
yeah, great job. Thank you both for being here.
You're welcome.
Watch the deer on the way home. Oh, they're everywhere. Okay, now we move on to number 6. Bylaw closing any or all portions of the deviation road located in part of lot 20, concession 3, geographic township of Bird, line between provincial highway 522 and the boundary of concessions 2 and 3, the township of Nipissing, district of Perry Sound. We do have some people that have asked to speak tonight. Originally, when this went out, it was requested that if anybody had comments or questions, they were to address them to the township office. But I realize that most counselors have received another quite a bit of information on this. So I just want to say, I'd like to welcome everyone to our meeting tonight. I acknowledge hearing from a number of you since the recent mail out. I was unable to discuss this issue because, unlike the general public and social media, councillors and mayors cannot respond to a complaint from an identifiable individual. I do appreciate, however, the passion of your letters. You have some great friends and neighbors, and I'm so glad that you're here tonight so you can hear perhaps the other side of the story, which you didn't receive in the mail out, because we all know there are two sides to every question. Okay, now I did my dissertation, but I've been advised that our lawyer has also suggested. So here are a number of comments and concerns regarding item 6 on the agenda. We would like to clarify a few items before we proceed. The deviation road located on part of lot 20, concession 3, formerly known as GERD, was a traveled road historically maintained for access to Granite Hill Road. As I have been told a number of times, the entire length of this road has not been used for this purpose for many years, and instead, only a short portion of the road extending south from Highway 522 has been maintained. Notwithstanding the foregoing, once the historical deviation road was established, the public right of passage over that land occupied by the traveled roadway continues unless and until a road closing bylaw is passed. So number 1, closing any and all portions of the deviation road located in part of lot 20, concession 3, geographic township of GERD, lying between provincial highway 522 and the boundary of concessions 2 and 3 in the township of Nipissing, district of Perry Sound. This passing of the road closing bylaw will not, and I repeat, not, prevent the owner from using the existing roadway and entrance onto Highway 522. Instead, the bylaw simply operates to eliminate the public right of travel over that roadway. The existing roadway will then become a private driveway. The township has already consulted with the Ministry of Transportation, and it has advised that the public road entrance can be converted to a private entrance for the owner's existing roadway driveway. A simple administrative process will occur, which will result in an entrance permit being issued for the private driveway entrance. Once the road closing bylaw is passed, all maintenance responsibilities will pass from the township to the owner. Like many other properties in the township, it will be a longer private driveway. And to clarify something else, this process began in May of 2021 when investigating a property damage complaint on the property in question. A resulting title search revealed that the township did not have paper title to the land occupied by the road, and that based upon the applicable law, the township's right to maintain the road was limited to the limits of the actual traveled portion of the roadway. The township did not have the authority over a 66-foot wide parcel of land. The result was that in turning equipment around, the township was passing over private property. And we did that for years, thinking that we had ownership, and we did not have ownership. And we were indeed turning on private property. Now, the complaint process is a confidential process between the complainant and the township of Nipissing, not being discussed in open session council meetings in order to preserve confidentiality of identifiable individuals. The public notice of the road closing process stated that the appropriate contact method to provide feedback. Members of council, as mentioned, received numerous messages individually regarding this item, and as a result, not all comments were available for inclusion with the agenda package. There were numerous comments, but I know we've all read them, got them on our emails.
Councilor Moore's email was incorrect on the original mail note, so I have been forwarding the ones that we did receive at the office.
Right. So number 3, upon receiving confirmation that the township did not have a legal right to turn equipment on private property, the winter maintenance processes were changed, and a significant health and safety concern for township staff and the public was identified when snow removals backed out onto Highway 522 during operations. This was the most significant consideration when discussing the options for this property. I have written much more, but I will reserve that. And what we will do now is we will move to those who have requested to speak, and I'll ask Will if you would turn on the microphone for Alberto, and speaking for him, I believe, is Carolina Campos.
Good evening. My name is Carolina Campos. I'm counsel for Margaret Kelly property located at lot 20, concession 3. I'm here today to urge this council to of Deviation Road and to continue maintaining it. Alternative, I would ask that at the very least, council defer its decision on this matter, may pursue a cooperative and mutually beneficial resolution. Long-time member of this community and a retired school teacher. Portion of Deviation Road provides the sole access to her property from Highway 522. In terms of the history of the use of this road, it has been township, including grading and snow plowing. So the township has taken an active role in the maintenance of this road. In late 2021, my client with the township regarding relatively minor damage that was caused to her land maintenance of the road, and she did so through the formal complaints process. Instead of simply remedying this issue, the township has responded in an manner by suggesting the closure of this entire portion of the road result in the cessation of all maintenance. And it creates liabilities for the township. First, the refusal to the road will hinder and possibly prevent emergency accessing our client's property. Ms. Kelly is an elderly woman who lives alone, and there's no principled basis to undertake such a drastic course of light of the extensive history of the township's maintenance of this road. Second, the impact of stopping up and closing the road is to affect our client's property from a zoning perspective. I would direct council to review section 3.2 of the township zoning bylaw. This section states that no person shall erect any unless the lot upon which such building or structure is public road, which is presently being maintained year-round the province. Due to this provision, if the road is then no development would be permitted on my client's property, if not outright sterilization of her parcel of land. The tribunal, including in its previous iteration as the Ontario Municipal, consistently held that downzoning may only be undertaken with care and compelling public justification, and also be balanced with the impact of the downzoning on. In a case where impact of fully sterilizing the development potential of a parcel of land, for that impact may also be required. Has not produced any evidence of a compelling public justification that road. I note that I've been advised.
Ms. Campos?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Unfortunately, the bandwidth that you're using keeps cutting you out, so we're not catching all of your message. Is it possible maybe to turn off your camera while you're speaking, just so we get your message, please?
Sure. What was the last thing you heard? I'll just turn my video off.
Well, just proceed.
So to date, the township has not produced any evidence of a compelling public justification that would require the closure of the road. And advised by other residents that there are other roads within the town which require winter maintenance equipment to be turned on private property. For example, the 20th side has a certain section where that occurs. Any level of balancing of a potential justification against our client's interests. And in fact, such cost to the township of continuing this maintenance, potential prejudice to our client who may have issues at home, may be unable to receive emergency services, and will lose all development rights to her property, are substantial impacts. So it is on these grounds that I would urge this council to refrain from closing the road. Again, this has been the township's practice 70 to 80 years. In the alternative, we would ask for its decision. Our client remains willing to reach, so this would afford some time for those decisions to take place. And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campos. Want to hear,
You can ask if he has any comments if you'd like to make.
I'm going to wait and ask if, would John Kelly like to speak, or just zooming on this call? Can you,
No, I'll just,
you'll leave your
Let's,
comments to Ms. Campos?
that's correct.
Okay, and Teresa Kelly has asked to speak. Would you like to have the mic now, Mrs. Kelly?
Sure. Thank you for inviting me to speak. I did outline my objections to the proposed bylaw in an email yesterday. And I mentioned the fact that I am a co-owner of lot 21, which is bisected by Highway 22. We do have an entrance to the northernmost part of our property via Lincoln Felters Road. But southern part of the property, it's only access to Highway 22 that exists is the deviated road that is in this proposed bylaw. So, you know, Margaret's access to this road is on one side of the road, and then lot 21, which is my co-owned property, is on the other side of the deviated road, which means that I have a similar problem. And so it's not only Margaret Kelly's issue, but also my own. We have an existing access to Highway 522 that would be closed. And I'd just like to point out to you that, you know, the property, if it's turned into a private road and a private access, I mean, as long as it remains with Ms. Kelly, I have access with that road. But should the property be sold to someone else, I would no longer have that existing access to 522 from the bisected property. Now, you did send me a letter noting that I have access on Granite Hill Road, at the far end of the property. But it's not, you know, Granite Hill Road is a smaller road, and it's much further down the road, whereas right now there's an existing access to 522, which I would very much like to see stay in place. And I support Margaret Kelly's proposal that this decision be deferred, and that you find some other means of solving the issue of the turnaround for the plow. So I do support, you know, Margaret Kelly's desire to keep that access to 522 as it exists right now. And I also, as a property owner that is affected by this proposed bylaw, I'd like to voice my objection to the proposed bylaw, and please ask you to defer. And I invite any questions that anyone wants to put forward.
John Paul, can you?
Like on Teresa's Kelly's lot, you have a provincial highway on one side. It's about 1,320 feet probably if it's an original 100-acre parcel. And that Granite Hill Road would probably cross 1,320 feet to the south end of that parcel. You would have to get an entrance permit, mind you, from the MTO or through the township in Nipissing. And I believe there's a small cost to that of $200.
Yeah, I appreciate that, that you're pointing it out. Yes. And I'm glad that, you know, there is that access. If you're familiar with that chunk of property, it's mostly a swamp. So, you know, in trying to gain access to Highway 522 from another position on that frontage is maybe a bit problematic. So having an existing access that's already there, that's already maintained by the township is much more favorable. But I appreciate, that it's possible. But like I said, if you've ever driven on 522, you know that it's a huge swamp, to the east of that deviated road.
Okay, I don't think anybody has any other questions. Yes,
Yeah, there is a road allowance along the west side of your property, isn't there? You're separated from the other property by a road allowance?
I do believe that's the case, yes.
Okay, thank you.
okay, if there's no other questions for Teresa, those are the only people that have asked to make presentations. Before we make our decision, and I know we've all gone over this and seen everything, but Ed Velblum and the information that we received from him seems to be quite contrary to what Ms. Campos pointed out. So I would like, if I could, to have Ed come on so that they could hear what he has to say. And I assume Ed did hear Ms. Campos.
I would assume.
Yep.
Ed,
Yes.
Municipal solicitor.
So this is Mr. Velblum. He's our municipal solicitor, and perhaps he can comment on what Ms. Campos has said and also what we have been receiving via emails and whatever. So Ed, the floor is yours, if you would.
Thank you very much. Yes, I've read a lot of the material that was submitted and read the letter from Ms. Campos' firm from her partner. A couple comments, and it's unfortunate there's some misconceptions, and I think you put it out on the floor right off the bat that at the end of the day, the ultimate effect of the road closing bylaw is to eliminate the public, any Joe Q public's right to drive down that road and actually go past Miss Kelly's home and go all the way to Granite Road. If they can find the path that used to exist, technically the public would have a right to travel over that. And as you pointed out, when it comes to deviation roads, the municipality doesn't have what we call paper title, but it really does have jurisdiction over the travel portion. So the municipality's authority goes to the edge of the traveled road, and that's it. And unfortunately, and with little used roads over time, that can actually start to shrink, depending on usage and maintenance. So it can create a problem. In the normal course with these deviation roads or colonization roads, what will typically happen is when they're well used, over time, the municipality will acquire paper title when people sever their lands or do some things on it. The municipalities that I work for will typically get a conveyance of the land and eventually will become the paper title holder to the whole length of road. In this case, it's essentially a dead end road to where Miss Kelly's house is. Stopping up short there. Now, Ms. Campos made some mention of some zoning and down zoning and in the township zoning bylaw. The section that she referred to says that no person shall erect any building or structure in any zone unless the lot upon which such building or structure is to be erected abuts an open public road which is maintained either by the municipality or the province. Well, this property probably has about 1,000 feet of frontage on Highway 522, and therefore it abuts. So this whole contention or suggestion that development rights are being precluded is just absolutely incorrect. It doesn't line up with the reading of the bylaw. To top it off, as was noted, nothing is going to physically change with regard to the driveway. It will still be there. As was pointed out, it will simply turn into a private entrance onto 522 instead of a municipally controlled entrance. It won't be unlike numerous driveways along 522, and I'm very familiar with the stretch of 522 from Trout Creek all the way to Port Loring. drive it many times. There are numerous driveways there that are lengthy, that extend off the highway in the unorganized township, in Powassan, and in the township of Nipissing. So nothing is going to change in terms of the actual access. Nothing is going to change in terms of zoning. This is not a down zoning. So all this reference to the Ontario Land Tribunal and the case law regarding down zoning, it just doesn't apply. So it really comes down to, it's a policy decision of council. Teresa Kelly has brought up some, points about her abutting property and the fact that she has access to Highway 522. I mean, that's something for council to consider. The issue for council to consider is, what's in the public interest. And understandably, Mrs. Kelly, the owner of the property where the road is, has certain concerns. But at the end of the day, the municipality doesn't plow right up to her doorstep. But, at some point, she or someone in her family or someone's hired to, plow out your driveway from your house to the actual road. And yes, this will make that work more, there'll be more work to do. Someone would have to be hired to do it. But that's something for council to consider in the policy context of what's in the public interest concerning the maintenance of this road. Again, the municipality is technically trespassing when it tries to do its turnaround. And as I understand from staff, not wanting to do that, the alternative now is to back out with the snow plows or any grading equipment. To back out, and you would have to back out all the way to Highway 522. So that's another policy issue for council to consider. The safety, workplace safety issues, of not really having the legal right to turn around and trespass onto the remainder of Miss Kelly's property. So, again, at the end of the day, this is a policy decision. I think in discussing it with staff, we're getting to that point in the year where we're mid-March already, and winter is, at some point it's going to end. And snow plowing will cease, but that's one thing council can consider, is to say, we're not going to stop our maintenance right at this point, understanding that, at the end of the winter season, we'll then consider this decision and to decide what council wants to do with the ultimate closure of the road. So if there's any questions from council, I'm more than happy to answer them.
First of all, Ed, I think council will discuss completing the 2022 season, or the remainder of the season for snow removal. And that will allow several months for them to find someone else to do snow removal the following year, if that's the way the vote goes. Now, John Kelly has requested to ask you a question. Do you mind if you do that, Ed?
Yeah, by all means, yeah.
Okay, so we'll open the mic to John Kelly, please.
Okay.
Kelly?
So can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. So with reference to the township policy and how this doesn't fit in, if you were to look at the north section of this road that continues on, so north of Highway 522, it's referred to as Lingenfelter Road, it serves 4 private residences. I'm sure you've had lots of time to look at the maps in this area, and everybody's familiar with what I'm talking about. Could you explain to me what the consistency is in terms of the continued maintenance up to the end of what is currently graded and plowed, and how the turnaround takes place at the opposite end of the road?
I'm sorry, John, I can't answer that question. That's not what I do. I didn't look at that part of the road. I'm just dealing with, the stretch on this part of the,
Okay, maybe I could direct it to council then, in terms of policy and how this is anything other than arbitrary.
We'll give it to our road superintendent.
So at the end of Lingenfelter Road, where you're asking, there's a proper turnaround at the back end of the road. Like township owned property.
Did you hear that, John?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so there is a turnaround that a tandem truck can turn around, doesn't have to back out turns around and proceeds back out Lincolnfelter Road frontwards.
Is that designated on maps? I didn't see it anywhere.
We don't designate turnarounds on all our roads.
So you don't have anything to substantiate this comment, is what I hear.
Yeah, it's a road allowance.
So, and we have 66 feet there, so that's where we turn around.
So there's 66 feet of road allowance.
So when you told Teresa Kelly that she has 66 feet of road allowance, and that her right to access in between lots 20 and 21 is not affected, sorry, why does that 66 feet exist on one lot and not on another?
I think I can answer that one for you, John. When you look at the mapping, you will see that the road that we're talking about, and this is why we call it a deviation road, there is an original road allowance between lots 20 and 21 through the various concessions. The road, follows that road allowance, but as the course of history and topography, when these roads were created, they deviated and took the path of least resistance. So, there's points where Lincolnfelter's Road is on the 66-foot wide road allowance, which the township has entitled to. On the property that we're talking about, it's the deviation road, and it's whether it's 66 feet. It depends on the actual conditions and what's out.
So where the snowplow and the grader has turned around for the last 40 years is onto the old path of Highway 522, which I'm sure that you've looked at the maps and you know what I'm talking about between the current path of 522 and the original path.
Yeah, and the old path.
So you're saying that doesn't.
The old path of 522 was transferred by the province to Mrs. Kelly and her husband. So that's private property too. It's no formal turnaround. So these things, again, they're very fact driven and very driven by what's actually out on the land.
John, do you have any other questions?
So I do know for a fact that on Teresa Kelly's property that portion has been utilized and traveled continuously for certainly as long as I've been alive. So that actually is a traveled portion of road owned by different people on two different lots.
Well, I don't think as far as I understand, I don't think the township has gone east and crossed the unopened road allowance there and went on to Teresa Kelly's property. They may have maintained that as their own private entrance across that unopened road allowance to lot 21.
So that's been in continued usage.
Again, the history of it goes to whether something is a public highway, but the act says you can close a public highway. So whether it's been maintained for 20 years or 40 years or whatever, once it's established as a public highway, it is a public highway. But councils of every municipality have the discretion to pass a road closing bylaw if they think it's in the public interest.
John, any other questions for Mr. Belbloom?
Could you please clarify what is the public interest instead of working for a collaborative solution?
Well, I'm not the one that determines what the public interest is. That's council.
I can direct that to council then. Yeah, not for you, Mr. Belbloom, but for council. Could you explain to me?
John?
No. There was no attempt at collaborative solution. There was merely a letter of closing.
I think what we're looking at, John, is unfortunately or fortunately, whatever, you have to look at some time at what is the greater good for the municipality and for the majority of people in the township. Backing a truck out of there onto 522 was in no one's best interest. And when we had the complaint, we receive a formal complaint, and I don't I mean, as far as we said, there would be a closing. I don't remember anybody suggesting that there was any discussion to be had. And I didn't see any correspondence regarding that. So that's where, where we've got to making this decision tonight.
I believe Teresa has a question.
To Ms. Campos, please.
I would just like to make a brief reply to Mr. Veldbloom's comment to the zoning bylaw. I would just note that the heading for bylaw is entitled Access Regulations to an Improved Street, otherwise referred to in the bylaw, for example, at section Road Access Requirements. We continue to maintain the closure of this road will cause significant issues for Ms. Kelly's property, and that that the land should have access to the road that it abuts. I reiterate that the public interest justification of the township against the impact that this decision will have on Ms. Kelly and so we continue to maintain our position that and it would be preferable to either or to not proceed with the closure of this road. Thank you.
Are there any? Mr. Veldbloom, did you want to respond, or shall we just proceed? Okay, we will proceed then. Council, you've heard Ms. Campos, John, and Teresa Kelly, and you've heard Mr. Veldbloom as well. Again, this is not putting a barrier over the road. The road is still there. It is still open. It is still accessible. An ambulance, a fire truck can still come up that road. Okay? I want to just be clear about that. When we say stop up and close, we are not stopping entrance. The road is still open, but if anyone else has a comment to make, this would be the time to make it. And I invite all of you, because you've all been under the scrutiny of this, if you care to make a comment. If not, I will call for a vote. Yes, Councilor Marchant?
May I ask a question of Mr. Goldman?
Yes, Mr. Veldbloom, a question, please.
This has been something stressful to go through. I just wondered, got a couple questions. Is a deviation trespass road similar to a forest road?
Yes.
So a forest road, the township then assumes liability and all that under the municipal act.
Yes, exactly. That's touching on what was just said, that nothing physical will change out there. It's just a shifting of responsibility of who's responsible for maintaining the road. And it also shifts absolute control over who drives on that road to Mrs. Kelly. If she says to someone, I don't want you driving on that driveway, she can do that.
Okay. Now, out of curiosity, where the old 522 highway went through, and I know Mrs. Kelly has all of it now, I wondered why there was a gap between the two portions. I don't know who can answer it, but there was a piece in there that I presume was the deviation trespass road allowance.
That's exactly why. That little gap exists there. That at the time that the ministry rerouted 522, they had their surveyor out there, and the surveyor would have located the edge of the traveled road, or the surveyor may have went from old mapping and said, look, if this is a colonization road, we typically assign a 40-foot width or a 66-foot width. So they probably, out of an abundance of caution, left a 66-foot swath through there that was under the jurisdiction of the township. But again, that's a lot of factual based information.
So that then would be under, like, it belongs to Miss Kelly now, and it would be under the same PIN as all the rest of the property?
Yep, she has paper title to all of the land where Lingenfelters Road is south of 522. But by operation of the municipal act and case law, the township has jurisdiction and authority to deal with the actual traveled road portion. So what the best way to put it in legal terms is the township is what we call the beneficial owner, while Miss Kelly still has paper title.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Any other questions from council? No, we cannot. Any other questions from council?
No questions. We're gonna vote. Can it be recorded, please?
Yep. This could, Councillor Scott has asked for a recorded vote. So when I call your name, you will say for or against, and it will be indicated on this. So first of all, I need a mover and a second. Councillor Moore. And Councillor Scott. And I need a number on this resolution. Thank you. So it's number R 2022-49, moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Scott, that we pass bylaw number 2022-11, being a bylaw to stop up and close any and all portions of the deviation road located in part of Lot 20, Concession 3, geographic township of Gerd, lying between Provincial Highway 522 and the boundary of concessions 2 and 3 in the township of Nipissing, district of Perry Sound, read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 15th day of March 2022. And I will just do it in order as it is on the resolution sheet. Piper, 4. Kirky, 4. Marchant,
Against.
Moore, 4. Scott,
4.
the count is 4, 4, and 1 against. Resolution is carried. We will, however, complete the 2022 spring season if you councillors are willing to do that.
Yes.
We'll complete the 2022 spring season for remaining snow removal to allow for provision of private maintenance for the following winter season. And I'll give you that. And we'll move on to number 6. You may or may not choose to stay. We're going to do, pardon me, number 7, the revised organizational chart for the township. So number 7. Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. I'd like to thank everybody that participated in this. I appreciate all of your passion. And I understand, but unfortunately in my case, I look at what I believe is the bigger picture. Majority, Ed, Teresa, Carolina, thank you all for being here tonight. And I appreciate everything you had to say, and thank you. You want to cut them off? Just leave them here or what? Do they leave? Okay. So we'll do first one that we passed bylaw number. So first of all, You've seen the organizational chart. The difference from last week to this, or last meeting to this meeting, is after our discussion, the deputy treasurer was added. And deputy clerk was added after we okayed that at the last meeting. And we've changed the organizational chart from sideways to this one. And I believe that was all, but if there was anything else, you can ask Chris. No, that was all. So are there any comments or questions?
No, looks good.
Looks good. Just
No, I didn't have an issue.
Okay, I'll ask for,
Can't find it.
I will need a mover and a seconder then.
the only thing within the municipal act, it says chief administrative officer. I did, I'm still on this municipal administrator. I like the title, but it's just funny in the municipal act, when you read it, it says chief administrative officer.
That was the concern when we changed the title over.
Yes.
I've added clerk treasurer to that title because there's certain implications within the legislation that I have to use that title.
So it was moved by, so it's number R 2022-50, moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Moore. That we pass bylaw number 2022-12, being a bylaw to adopt a revised organizational chart for the township of Nipissing. Read a first, second, and third time and passed this 15th day of March 2022. All in favor? Carried.
That's 50.
Then that was 50. The next one is 51. This is being a bylaw to adopt municipal position descriptions, municipal administrator, administrative assistant, deputy clerk, and land planning and technology administrator, deputy treasurer positions for the township of Nipissing. And I hope you've all had a chance to go over that. There was a ton of reading this week. A ton of printing, a ton of reading. And just think we're at number 8 of 22. So any comments or questions on this?
But are any of these from, like, through Penny or whatever?
No, these position descriptions that you have are the ones that we had adopted previously. All we moved were the deputy clerk and the deputy treasurer switched.
Yeah, I compared them, they're pretty much word for word. Yeah.
And then the municipal administrator was CAO clerk. So I just updated that to be municipal administrator to match what's in our position or our organizational chart.
Well, this is good. I just wondered if there were the influence from that other.
No.
Shimoza.
No. So it's number R 2022-51. I need a mover in the seconder, please. Okay, I'm going to go on this end with Councillor Marchant. Councillor Kirky. And it's number R 2022-51, moved by Councillor Marchant, seconded by Councillor Kirky. That we pass bylaw number 2022-13, being a bylaw to adopt municipal position descriptions for the municipal administrator, administrative assistant, deputy clerk, land planning and technology administrator, deputy treasurer positions for the township of Nipissing. Read a first, second, and third time passed its 15th day of March 2022. All in favor? Carried. Next one is number 52. And this is to appoint the aforementioned land planning technology administrator and deputy treasurer. We have to appoint him now because we changed the description. So Any comments or questions about that?
The actual job has changed.
He was previously the acting deputy clerk, and now he'll be the deputy treasurer.
Oh, I see, okay, all right, okay, yeah, I get it.
Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder. To my right with Councillor Scott and Councillor Moore. It's number R 2022-52. It's moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Moore, that we pass bylaw number 2022-14, being a bylaw to appoint a land planning technology administrator, deputy treasurer, read a first, second, and third time, and passed this 15th day of March 2022. All in favor? Carried. And just to follow up on what we congratulated Kristen with last time, this is to appoint an administrative assistant deputy clerk. And I need a mover and a seconder again. Okay, Councillor Marchand, thank you. Councillor Kirky. It's number R 2022-53, moved by Councillor Marchand, seconded by Councillor Kirky, that we pass bylaw number 2022-15, being a bylaw to appoint an administrative assistant deputy clerk, read a first, second, and third time, and pass this 15th day of March 2022. All in favor? Carried. Pardon? Oh, really? Well, happy birthday. In case I don't get up tomorrow. Now, this was moved ahead from our last one, supporting the expansion of the Northern Ontario School of Medicine. It was interesting to see last week when the NDP was in North Bay. They've also latched onto this and pointed out the dire shortage we have of doctors in this area. So a mover and a seconder to support this, Councillor Marchand and Councillor Moore. Yes.
On the CBC radio tonight, they announced that there was two figures, and I can't remember, but they've announced a great increase to the school in Northern Ontario for both undergrads and the doctorates.
Great.
I think there was something like 30 positions or something. I don't quote me on the numbers, but
Yep, no,
it was announced that there was all over the province, but the north, but a lot, so.
When my daughter applied several years ago, there were only 52 positions offered in that center. Yeah, there were thousands that applied.
it's positive. That's a positive. So it's number R 2022-54, moved by Councillor Marchand, seconded by Councillor Moore. The Council of Township of Nipissing supports resolution number 4422, the municipality of Shania, supporting the expansion of the Northern Ontario School of Medicine to address the urgent need for physicians in Northern Ontario. All in favor? Carried. Since our last meeting, it's always nice to have enthusiasm. So Councillor Turkey would also like to attend Phenom. So we just need to add him to the list. So we need a mover and a seconder. And I'll go with Councillor Scott, Councillor Moore. Never know in these situations if Councillor Turkey can nominate. He didn't, just to be careful.
I'm going to recuse myself from the vote.
Okay. So it's number R 2022-55, moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Moore. So we authorize Councillor Turkey to attend the 2022 NOM MMA Northeastern Ontario Municipal Conference hosted by the City of North Bay, May 9th 2/11/2022. All in favor? Carried.
The only time you would recuse yourself, Councillor Kirkie, is if you had a pecuniary interest.
Oh.
You're not being paid extra, you're not having a pecuniary interest in it.
2 days of study.
Okay, the next one, so what we're looking at now is the township, as we mentioned, was successful in obtaining a grant from FedNor to purchase installation of playground equipment for Heritage Park in 2022. The RFP was issued and requirements were met, and the rec committee looked, their recommendation was for 2,
There are 2 on there. One has a swing set, the other doesn't.
and
And the rec committee was fine with either one. Well, am I not right, Wes?
and I look around at the people here that are gonna make this decision. None of us will be on the swing set or the slide, but from the rec committee, and they said either was, and again, I put it back to the rec committee if, was there anyone that,
No, everybody was there a handicap swing set on the one that we chose? Yeah, so that was the difference. And having younger grandchildren who are older now, they're both on four swings, but that's just my feeling for it. But I was good with either one.
yes,
It's very good. I'm glad we got the grant. What I noticed is that the first one, can I say name? Yeah,
company, yeah.
Gambit or whatever has only a 1-year warranty on concrete products.
Sorry, which
And
one?
the other one says
Jam that.
5-year warranty on glass fiber reinforcement concrete products. They have a 5-year warranty.
Oh, but they all had the same.
Says concrete products
Okay.
1 year. Back here, it says 5-year warranty on glass fiber reinforced concrete products.
The one with the 5-year is,
How does it recycle plastic wood?
Oh, sorry, that's.
Are they talking about a fiberglass concrete in that? Like,
Yeah.
there's probably 2 different. There's a concrete, but then you get fiberglass, in it, which would be stronger.
It doesn't, yeah, this one doesn't say any concrete at all. But this one doesn't say any. Is there anything about this reinforcement? It just seemed like the second one had a better warranty on a couple of things. And
and that would be Blue Mint.
Yeah, the warranties on the blue ridge can be stretched a little bit further than the other ones.
So it's going to come down to,
They do the installation as well.
there are both prices in there.
yeah.
The
So
way I looked at it was what's more inclusive and having the extra swing set for handicap. The other one really doesn't have that. So it became more who could we bring there and be able to use it? And that became more my concern. Opening it up to more people and
Is
right,
it the swing set one that has the better warranty? Which one has a better warranty?
the one without the swing set. So it
But
comes
that's just
down,
the concrete though.
Okay.
That's not all. So a couple, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor.
not at all.
So a couple of the other comments were looking at the size of the slides. So one of them have bigger slides, one have a couple smaller slides for the younger kids. That was a couple comments that were made.
That was Jam that had,
Yeah, the open spaces.
right, so that's cool.
So there was a couple comments about that.
Yep.
Like Counselor Scott said, the swings, pros and cons. The other one, the blue, you could put swings in later.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest comment, I believe, was the size of the slides for the younger kids. But majority said either one would be excellent start.
So Blue Imp has a 10-foot plastic slide. What's the other one have?
They got 3 different sizes. So what we asked for was, we asked for from 18 months up to 12 years old.
So I
We have
see.
an 8-foot and a 10-foot.
Yeah. So we need to have some kind of, make a motion. Does anybody from the rec committee now, after this discussion, want to recommend one over the other, in which case then we'll vote? And we pass or won't, then we'll make one and go over the other.
I'll still go with the one with the swings. That was a good idea.
That was open
Open
space.
Space.
Okay, so we'll make that motion. On 6:30. It does have more slides. Not that- Yeah, I still,
Blue Imp has a 12-foot plastic slide. They have 3, they have a 12, a 10, and an 8.
Yeah, they were more geared, all of their equipment to slides. I found.
Well,
I'm sorry,
swing as opposed to a slide. Swing as opposed to a slide is moving parts, whereas a slide is stationary.
Yeah.
So a slide would tend to probably last longer.
Mhm, absolutely. Yeah, we can go that
Let's
way.
make it.
Either way, like Will said, we can always add slides later. It's just we can always add more.
Yeah.
The point is,
This
we're gonna
is-
add on to it. I thought it was a good start.
Yeah,
so we have a motion for open space. So I need a mover and seconder.
I'll second it.
Counselor Scott, Counselor Turkey, and I'll read it, and we'll see how it goes. It's number R202256, moved by Counselor Scott, seconded by Counselor Turkey, that we accept the request for proposal from Open Space for the provision and installation of playground equipment for Heritage Park. RFP cost $83,630. All in favor? Okay, opposed?
It's a warranty.
Yeah. Passed. I'll stay off it. I will increase the warrant. Where are we now?
Number 14.
Number 14 already. All I'm going to state is the number 14. Supply installations for municipal software programming. We're going to defer it tonight, and now I'm going to like to speak to it.
We received 2 submissions. One was exceptionally outside of our budget, but it met all the criteria we were looking for. And the other one was well within our budget, but did not cover all the departments. So we're going to continue to do some research because it's a very large piece of what we do. So we need to find something that will fit. Well, hopefully we'll have something for the next council meeting.
I agree. This is a huge purchase and we need to do this. Yep. But you're not going to get a second chance. You're not going to get the money again.
No, exactly.
Okay, so we're going to go to number 15. And I'm going to read it and then I'm going to pass it over to Chris. The resolution is to award request for proposal consulting services for landfill monitoring, both landfill sites. And alternate Chris, and she's gonna rather than me read what she knows.
So we received 4 submissions for this project. When we did historical analysis, an RFP or a cost analysis or a request has never been done before. So we did this just to see if we were getting a value service, as we do for all of our larger services. So of the 4 that came back, Dan and I, our operations superintendent, and I went through with a checklist against what was in the RFP. They all scored rather high. This isn't about the service provided by one or the one that we're using now. This is strictly based on cost. So we have 1 year left with our contract with AECOM. The lowest that we received, the lowest bid we received was from Pigeon, $29,010. AECOM's cost was the highest at $44,500. That is consistent with what's in our contract with them. We did approach them and ask them what the cost would be to get out of our contract for this year. The cost would be $6,500. So if we were to go with pension, we would still save close to $9,000 for this year. And they would provide the same services that we are receiving at this time.
Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious answer.
I think that's really good that
Yeah.
we did that. And, you know, this is something that needed to be done. And it's time, and I think we're all on side with this.
Yeah. After
So-
some problems a little late, I think we should.
And these people are willing to work with us. And I think Dan's happy with them as well.
Yep.
Good. So then we will award this consulting proposal to Pigeon. If we will vote, we need a mover and a seconder again, Councillor Marchant and Councillor Wood. It's number R 2022-57, moved by Councillor Marchant, seconded by Councillor Moore, that we award a request for proposal for consultant services, landfill monitoring submitted by Pigeon, effective the 2022 monitoring season. Submitted cost of $29,000, $29,010 plus applicable taxes. All in favor? Carried. I'm in there already. Good work. Okay, next. Up the budget. Everybody want to look in your
Should have their coffee.
packets,
Lots of paper.
Lots in here.
highlighted with blue at the top.
A lot of these numbers came forward from the 5-year capital forecast that we usually work with. So those 4 years plus some other projects, we expanded this to a 10-year to give us a further view so that we could look at larger projects and help us to, when we're looking for funding, when funding options come available, we'll at least know what we're looking for. This also will fit with the strategic planning we're doing with the different committees so that we can add to this document. So this is a living document. So in this document for 2022, we're looking at for general government. Right now, we have $219,000 in modernization funding that we can use. And last year,
That
We
still remaining from the original.
Yes.
Okay.
so what happened last
Chris, can I interrupt? Just, so one thing, if you listened recently, and we have been very, very careful with our money. If you listened lately, Wass and Chisholm and somebody else, Calendar got modernization funding because they had spent theirs 2 years ago. And so now that's why we're looking at this. This is what we need. And it doesn't cost the taxpayers a cent. And what it will do is it will eliminate that modernization fund, and then we can apply to the government for more. And because we didn't get the last round, that puts us in a better position. Should they do it again, we're in a good position. So because sometimes you hear these announcements and you think, why didn't we? And that's why we were careful with the money. We were prudent.
We
And
weren't
that's
eligible
right.
to apply because we still had the money in our reserves. So
Plus the software and stuff fits right in with modernization.
Yes.
You know, we're upgrading and we had to because of the other company closing, right?
Yep.
exactly. So we were notified at the beginning of this year that our software provider will be retiring at the end of the year. So we have no choice. And with this year, a lot of our levies and things are a lot higher. So we were very fortunate to have the money there to offset.
It fits in perfectly.
And we had some other larger projects that we're going to have to look at very soon. The township garage is in very bad repair. Well, we need a new one, period. So we have some different ideas, but this way, when those funding opportunities come available, we can apply.
The one thing you point out about the township garage, and I didn't notice it because it's pretty small, but it was built for single axle trucks. Now we're putting tandems in there. They have to park them at an angle, and you just squeeze yourself in between the trucks. And again, so this is something that we're gonna have to look at in the future.
Yeah, so it gets to where it's unsafe for that. With the min vehicle, I don't know how many will ever be on council, but I would hope that we look at an electric one.
Whatever is available at that time, for sure. We just put it in there so that we're saving towards it, and that is the goal. We have one now that the building official can use. So I'd like us to, I put in there for a new website because there are certain upgrades that we're going to have to make, but that can be put off till next year. But that's also something that we're looking at when we're looking at the software upgrade. There's a lot of things that work together so that we can provide more efficient services for our residents. So we're looking to make sure that we can fit everything in.
Do we typically, our server, do they typically last 5 years and out pretty much?
That's
I
our
know the
goal.
last one crashed, like this year.
Yeah, this year. Well, the one had a main chip board that went down. It's under warranty, so they came in and did repair it. Actually, the one has a newer board, but still.
We purchase service warranties with these as well.
Service warranty. We pay if there's a problem, but we have a warranties.
Okay.
Moving on to, and I've included the reserve amounts as well, so that it continues with the reserves that we were hoping to put in place. So we have an idea. It matches our reserve policy, so what we're using, we're putting back. For the fire department, we're in year 3 of our pickup truck, year 3 of the UTV, and we have a communications tower planned in the capital that was in place before. For the reserves, same.
The communications tower, 522, any idea where it'll provide coverage for command partway to Trout Creek?
Everywhere. So by adding that tower, we're doubling, almost tripling our capability for fire and public works.
Yeah.
We're both gonna go on it.
We'll go from the tower here to the tower there. to the
Correct.
vehicle.
So they'll be linked together. So we'll be able to pretty well, by the looks of the survey, probably from about South River up to North Bay.
Yeah, get mobile phones coverage, so.
Yeah,
Will that take care of all the dead spots that we typically have in the township?
supposed to by their charts that their graphs and everything, that should take care of all our dead spots for both fire and public works.
Right.
No objection.
So moving on to fire department reserves plan, we're following the same path that we have been for several years. I've also included the fire department fleet plan. It shows which vehicles we have and what years we're looking to replace them. So we've staggered two, we do have 2 trucks that we received in the same year several years ago. So we will stagger the replacement of those to make it easier. But that will be a little bit down the way. For landfill capital forecast, you'll see in 2031, we don't have anything for this year. But for 2031, we need to start looking at the Bear Creek landfill closure and rehabilitation. We were working with the contractor that we have now. And Dan and I sat down with them twice and we reworked the figures because we had our concerns about the calculations. And it turned out that they were using an 8-year average to provide us with remaining space. And we wanted to go more with what is actually there. So using those figures and what we came up with, we're looking at about a 17-year lifespan at Bear Creek, and that's being very generous. So we have some ideas of projects we'd like to see that we could probably use there, but that's about the time frame we'll start looking at implementation.
Good question. Is Bear Creek, if we close it, can we still use it for as a recycle people for that end of the township? And would that be considered a close then? Would it still be considered open? Because nothing really.
I believe we have to cover it as in closing it, but I don't believe we have to go through the full closure cost. We could use it as a transfer station.
Yeah.
That's how
Would just lighten our load and be able to keep it open longer.
we're going to look at, we have a few different ideas that we'll be bringing forward to council that for consideration. Yes, that's our goal as well.
Yeah.
And we'll continue with we always put $10,000 into the closure reserve. We have a healthy reserve, but now that we've had to move up the closure date for Bear Creek, it's in our best interest to increase our reserves moving forward. So I've increased them incrementally for the next 10 years. Public Works is always complicated. That's why it's got all these colors on it. So what, as we know, we're purchasing 2 tandem trucks this year. And we're in year 2 of the other tandem truck, plus we have an excavator. And we do need to look at replacement for the 3/4 ton coming up next year. We're hoping that we can put off the grader purchase till 2025. And we're also hoping to put off the purchase of the backhoe. But those are both in the shape they're in. So that just gives us an idea of the requirements. And then once we get to the end of this, we'll be able to have a fleet schedule.
With method financing, sometimes we're borrow or somewhere reserved. Something.
So what we do is we get a loan from the bank for 5 years on a 5-year term, but the bank payments are taken from the reserve amount that we do rent from ourselves.
I knew there was something for the reserve.
Yes. Public Works projects for 2022. We have what formerly was the AMO gas tax. It's now a community something. It's a long name that I haven't quite remembered. So we have that grant. We also have the OSIP grant, and we have a new grant this year called NORDS. And they allowed us to apply it to the previous year. So we put it together against Beatty Street. So it pretty much covered Beatty Street as well, because it replaces for.
Well, it's for where pits are mining or logging and stuff, so it's for fixing damaged roads from those activities.
Oh, I see, okay.
And there's a pit just up the road from the office. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Chris got to apply that to Beatty Street then.
Oh, you have to apply it to a road that is that activity on the end or
Yes.
down that road
Yeah.
somewhere, okay.
And we've been promised the same amount for 5 years, so it's about 95,000. So for the 2022 budget amount, we're going to apply for that to put it into reserve to replace the large culvert on Hazel Glen.
Yeah.
It's a shared.
It's a
culvert.
shared culvert,
with
but
calendar.
it's one of the big ones that we will have to replace shortly.
Oh, I know. what
So-
you mean, yeah.
We'll start putting the money because that, there's a pit down the road that uses those roads to get up to the highway, so it fits within the criteria.
And we can save it for a few years, so we'll have a little bit of money in reserve and it won't be an impact to our taxpayers. We should be looking at some garage roof repairs just in the interim. But I believe council will bring more information forward, but there has to be a decision of when we stop putting good money after that. So. We have some ideas on that. I think we'll bring those forward at a future council meeting. And we're also looking at a geotechnical report on the Homewood Ridge that we would go have with Powassan on. We have a meeting, hopefully. We're working on scheduling a meeting with Powassan to discuss the financing.
Have they got back to us?
But that last geotechnical report will then put us in a position that we will be shovel ready should a grant come up for the work that we need to do on the Homewood Ridge. So that's our last piece, I believe.
This meeting that we're looking for is also to discuss the All South Road.
Yes.
Yes.
With our,
Shared portion.
yes.
We need, when you talk to us. Okay.
On that. For the reserves for public works, we started last year with a reserve for the garage replacement, so I suggest we move forward with that. Continuing on, it's a relatively small amount compared to what we're going to need, but at least it's a start.
That was the interim
On the reserves page.
on the reserve side.
Comes to that garage. I've been doing my job a long time, and I've been involved in the 2 cases where the garages are rent out. You've got a lot of very expensive equipment sitting in these places. When they hit their 50-year mark, who knows what's behind those walls, what's happening, what's going on. It's not, it leaves a real unsettling feeling in my gut.
Well, we have a lot of water leaking into the building now too, so, you know, that and electrical.
I should put out any fire. Rain or snow.
Well, we've identified our issues and we're working towards.
I know we have,
Doing what we can do, but
we have a property for it with the.
Oh, yes. Yes, we do.
That zone cemetery that could be changed. and-
Actually, just the trade lot is for cemetery expansion.
Mostly open field is.
Yeah.
So it's-
So it
Yeah,
can-
that's a good move.
It can be built while we're still on the old one.
We can do it right.
And access right onto the highway.
I think we'd remain off of Beatty
Off
Street.
Beatty Street.
It's
It's
just
pretty busy there.
the deer road.
I'm laughing under the mask. I'm coughing. I don't want you to guess.
We'll continue with the bridge reserve and our gravel reserve. This for a large replacement of gravel on the Alsace, I believe is what we use that one for. And the public works fleet plan is listed at the bottom of the public works reserve page. And it just shows that we bunched up 2 trucks, but when we go to replace them, we'll move them forward a bit. Interesting shape. We're
And
getting
now you're gonna have a plan though.
We have a plan.
Yes.
This is working towards everything having a plan so that we can find funding, we can better place our finances. Cemetery capital, we're fine for this year. We're looking at a fencing reserve starting this year. We had an issue with the Nipissing Union Cemetery where the snowmobile trail crosses
The cemetery.
from that side of the road to the other side of the highway. Individuals have been creeping up to get fresh snow and unfortunately they're coming very close to our stones.
So I'm going in front of our living room windows in the village.
Yep.
So,
I noticed come up tonight, they were pretty close to
Yeah.
the highway.
We want to maintain the cemetery, so we were talking about fencing along there. for that
Have we
purpose.
contacted the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Club?
A letter was written today and I'm just waiting to discuss it with Dan and we'll be ready to send it out. So the cemetery will need a lawnmower replacement. I believe we're looking at that next year. Hopefully we'll make it that far. And And if not, we'll just keep putting it off till we need it. Is that what you were?
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
So the Alsace Cemetery is quickly running out of space, and I know they're doing a lot of work there. So that was just an option.
okay.
And they've opened up how to finance through the care and maintenance funds. We can borrow from that fund now. So it would be a no impact to taxpayers. And it could just be a user-based service through the cemetery if they wanted to go that way.
I'm not gonna give it up 2032, but I just wanted to know what it was.
Just a niche for cremated remains.
Gotcha.
So recreational capital forecast, you'll notice there aren't any dollar signs there or dollar values there right now. We do have an amount in the budget in the capital. Maqua Lake Boat Launch is in horrible repair and it's dangerous at this point. So we were looking at just removing the cement and leaving it operational. The landing at Chapman's Landing Dock also needs repair for safety purpose. And then we'll look at further structural issues later on. We need to replace the fascia and soffit at the community center. And playground installation goes under capital, but it is through grant for the portion from reserve. And I'm still waiting for more information from the Recreation Committee to build on that for future plans. For the,
So I was just looking at parking launch area in Quabbie Lake.
yes, there's another space there, land that can be developed where there would actually be parking available.
And that's gonna be 2023.
Yeah, we would need to come up with some plans and some pricing and have some. approval.
Great.
So-
Ready to put my boat in this year, but what the heck? Can't afford gas. Don't worry. Yeah, can I?
So the reserves plan for recreation, we've really built this up because there weren't any real reserves coming under recreation, but now we're going to have the playground, so we'll start with the 500 this year because we're installing it, but after that, there should be a reserve for replacement or repair going forward. The boat launch and dock reserve is new. We got the government dock gifted to us last year. And it came to our attention that we didn't have any reserves for the Chapman's Landing dock or the boat launch that need repair. So putting money aside in the reserve is just looking forward. Community center building reserve and fitness center reserves we had started previously. And then for the museum capital forecast, there wasn't anything really for capital this year, but there is the 30 window repair at the church that needs to be done. So we're working towards that. And we will continue looking for grants that can help us with that. There's also a foundation issue, I believe, with the office building that will have to be addressed sooner rather than later. So I placed it in here for 2025, but we'll see if we can also get grants to look at that. And starting a building reserve to address those issues as well this year.
There's 4 or 5 outbuildings there now, so the roofs have to be, shingles have to be replaced.
That is our draft capital budget and asset management forecast for the next 10 years.
It will change.
It will, absolutely.
Yeah.
That would be done.
For 10 years is a good thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is a good thing to have that.
It helps us to build the plan forward, so.
Shows us still the reserves and stuff that's planned.
I think it's important too, as we approach a council election year, that we can provide the information to new council members that may be coming in, where we're coming from.
As Liz and I will do.
That's all I have to say.
Okay. Is this? We approve that for 2022 to 2032. So I need a mover and a seconder, please. Okay. Mr. Moore. number R 2022-58, moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Marchant, that we approve the capital budget and asset management forecast 2022-2032 as presented. All in favor? And thank you for looking into the future.
Budget. We'll try and make as painless as possible, I promise. So I circulated the worksheets. I think what would be best is to go through this one. The other one is in a different order and it's twice as long. So we'll go through this. If that's okay. So I'll give you the bottom line first, so you know what we're working towards. All of the capital and reserve amounts that you just heard in the capital forecast are included in this budget. So using the tax levy amount that we have within this budget, it's a 4% increase to the municipal tax levy itself. With the assessment increases in the township, that will result in a 2.2% increase to tax rates. To give you an idea, if you have a residential home that has an assessment value of $203,000, your increase for this year will be $39.09.
That is not good. That's fantastic.
Fantastic.
Way the cost of living is up to 5 or
Cost of living's at 5. That is,
5.1.
pardon?
5.1 today.
5.1.
Wow.
something.
Oh, it's up in my, I don't know.
That's really good.
Yeah.
And I mean, it shows also how much we've grown and how much our assessment has grown. And, you know, so that's a positive, and, you know, I know we can, the taxpayers should be happy with that when I'm looking at people coming in at 5 and 4, you know, that kind of thing. So
Didn't I hear like 6 point something for next day? Is that what it is?
That's what they're shooting at, yeah.
That's a lot.
But it says a lot that we held on to the modernization fund, and we still had quite a bit left in our COVID CP reserve. And as we're nearing the end of that, and with the levy increases that were due to COVID that we have to pay, it just made sense to use that money to offset those levies, and hopefully things will
It's
improve.
still one of the lowest tax bases around for us, or roughly taxes.
Well, not paying a whole lot of money on interest rates
No,
either.
that's right.
So we're
So-
going to this sheet, right?
Yeah,
Correct?
we'll
Okay.
just kind of skim through it, if that's okay.
Yes, yes.
Our Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund went up 2%, so the government is giving us 2% more at $629,400. We won't be getting any COVID resilience funding that we got last year. The municipal tax levy is up 4%. Our payment in lieu, which is for crown lands that we have within the municipality, they went down because we got the government help. So they still remain at 23,000. We had a surplus amount from our financial statements of $148,000. And as explained by our auditor, that is a result of inflation costs based on our landfill costs. And as we discovered the 8-year average issue, that we can expect that to then show up as a deficit next year. So instead of using that within the taxes, we placed it into reserve, so it can offset the deficit that will come next year and not impact the taxes.
That's all.
Yes. Interest earned on our reserves and interest on taxes. I lowered the interest on taxes because our tax arrears are quite low, so. From reserve, you'll see there's an amount there for $292,519. That includes the modernization fund and the safe restart fund that will be utilized. Revenues includes road closings, tax certificates. Tax certificates were really high last year because of all of the property transfers that took place. Tax sales, we have one that we'll be going to forward. Minor variances. We have a new category of consent application fees because we started that for this year. And that will offset the planning fees that we had an abundance of last year. Miscellaneous is for a number of different items that we receive at the township office, from photocopies to all sorts of different documents, including freedom of information requests. And we've received 2 of those so far this year. Okay, so council remuneration and all of our, so salaries will just go through because they've already been approved by council, and all of our deductions are non-negotiable. Professional development for council, I moved that back up to $8,000 because things are opening up and we can start going to different events again. The webpage, I actually placed $25,000 in there, and it fit with the budget. So hopefully we can do some work with the software this year. Information stayed the same. Strategic plan implementation went down. We're still doing some signage and some branding for the municipality. And for pay equity, that could go back down to 5,000 to our regular amount just for odds and ends. We do not budget for amortization. That is just a paper transfer for us. So property assessment went down 1% for the fees for impact.
So impact are charging us less.
Yeah, it went from $58,391 to $57,749.
I did a survey for them.
Capital expenses, we have at 240, that would be for the software program. Thing in maintenance stayed a little bit higher due to the increase that we have. Propane, as you know, has gone up. Hydro up. And also we had installed a propane furnace at the township office and air conditioning instead of electric. So we've changed over with the grant last year. So that will also increase our propane use, but lower our hydro. Postage stayed the same. Insurance, I assume, is going to go up. I haven't had any estimates.
They go up.
Office maintenance and supplies, that is for our, we have pest control, things like that. And that's, I don't have it in front of me, I apologize, but there are a number of things that go into that. Professional development stays the same for staff. Vehicle maintenance, we leave it at $1,000. We share that with the building department. Audit fees are going to rise by $700. Legal fees, I anticipate will go up a little bit, so we added up to $7,500 is our budget for this year. Planning and zoning should be all right this year. We've now finished most of our changes to the zoning bylaw. We just have the trailer to go through. We always place $1,000 for integrity commissioner. If it's not used, we place it in reserve at the end of the year. And election 2022, you'll see there's a budget for 10,000. We're taking 6,000 out of reserve. We do place 2,000 in reserve each year. Okay. Moving on to fire. So general government actually went down 6% overall. Moving on to fire, you'll see from reserve, there's an amount there that's for the truck and UTV payments. The Safe Restart program we don't have this year. We changed our user fees for 911 installations, so that went up a little further. That's a new fee this year. Building permits, we had a banner year last year. We budgeted 30,000 and we had 85,000 in revenue. So we budgeted 45,000, we're already quite high. I believe that amount that you see there of almost $7,000 actual to date changed today to double.
Have a cooling this year, probably next year, maybe.
Probably next year, because we're not seeing it slowing down right now, I don't think. Wow.
Just hope, I guess.
All right, and animal control, just leave that the same, we don't usually see a change there. So general for the expenses for the fire department UTV, that comes from reserve. Goes to page 4. The truck is also from reserve. We increased the heat and hydro for stations 1 and 2. Building maintenance stayed the same, and telephone. Insurance, we left it the same because last year it came in at 20,900, so we increased it to 22,000 is the amount that we have there. That should cover everything.
Do we don't pay one insurance for everything, do we?
No, it's all broken out. That's why the RFP is very, very difficult to put this way. But
Yeah.
we're almost due to do another one.
Yeah.
Equipment, we've actually lowered the amount under the equipment to 17,000. Building and ground maintenance, fire department to reserve is as per the reserve listing that was in the capital forecast. Fire department capital, 60,000 is for the tower. Expenses, material dues, taking and wording. Everything stays the same as it was last year, pretty close. Station where we're a little bit. Fire prevention stayed the same. I should mention the actual to budget amounts that you'll see for fire prevention. They're a little bit off for last year because we had the Christmas run and the Halloween that should have been under recreation, but we ran it through the fire department. So we've fixed all of those accounts now. So you'll see everything should start to even out for this year.
Some of the WSIB rates are going down, so the
We got our notice that we'll be getting another refund this year. We got one last year. We don't have an amount yet.
rates will be dropping for company and county.
Automatic aid, we seen professional development, we have a 25,000. Even with the new certification requirements that are coming in, we're anticipating some changes, but we don't know what that's going to result in just yet, so we'll leave it the same.
Okay.
The rental, you'll see the incident rental, training rental, fire prevention rental, maintenance rental. That's where when we use equipment, we rent it from ourselves. It goes against the expenses. And we place that into reserve. Any questions so far? EMC development, now that I know that Chief Bateman has been taking courses and getting more and more done with our emergency management. Bylaw enforcement, I don't anticipate a large amount there other than the costs for enforcement that Chief Bateman will have. We still have Jim Warren on contract. So in the event that we need to call him in, that's what that's there for. Animal control officer is still Sandy Drix. Chief building official is still Cameron Karpenko. That is a shared service that we have from Calendar. Leasing went down 2%. It went down from 325,494 to 319,309. Social services levy went up 1%. And East Home went up 6%. And again, we took money out of the reserve. It hasn't been designated to those levies. It was just part of the general.
Please tell me to use some of the COVID.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
With the COVID money, there was about 115,000. So taking that and dividing it into 4 for EMS, East Home, Health Unit, and DSAP, that will offset those costs. Cemetery, we leave revenue costs there. lowered the interest for cemetery because we had a GIC that was passed in. So we have an interest this year. Health unit levy went up 3%. And we are in, I forget which year, I think we're in year 7 of our health year contribution.
It was 10,
I think it was 20,
20.
and we only have a few years. EMS went up 6%. So that went from 117,659 to 124,916. Salary and benefits for cemetery, we anticipate that going down based on last year. For its operations. And the grounds reserve of $500 is for the fencing. Dump revenues last year, we budgeted 50,000 and we got 73,000. That includes our stewardship monies plus also the scrap steel amount that we're getting. And we're anticipating a good year. Costs in the landfill received relatively steady. Materials and supplies at 38,000. Because we may have to bring the shredder in again, but that.
We're gonna have to, yeah.
The dump closure reserve. Now, I haven't changed the dump study amount, and it is 44.5. I have a surplus here for this year. And hazardous waste fee for the city of North Bay, we haven't received an estimate from them that usually they give us the same rate every year. Recycling capital, where we may have to do some repairs to the walkways. And recycling operating, we're looking at 60,000, but anticipated. OSIP grant went up. It was 95,000 last year. It's up to 202,196 this year. So from reserve roads, you'll see 187,392. That is for the payments on the trucks. Our Nords grant for 2022 that we put towards B Street, we received it this year, so it'll just work backwards. That's 97,679. The gas tax grant was 108,275. And then we have the proceeds for the trucks, for the loans that we'll have to get. Street lights will remain at 3,000. We replaced almost all of our street lights. As they break, we replace them. That's how we do it. So we have our payments for our long-term debt for our trucks. That all comes from reserve. Emergency preparedness materials, that's a new category for this year.
Yeah, it's just like emergency spill kits. We have an accident on the highway, so water, oil and gas doesn't bleed into our ditch systems. We could get something in there until somebody bigger comes along.
Helps us out.
Yeah.
We also budgeted for barriers and signage that we're desperately needed of.
Right, like road closed signs, like barriers that we can put up quickly. You know, if we got water on some of the roads that are famous for flooding out. And ice storms, we're gonna start closing the big hills until we can get on them safely.
Makes sense. And we've been talking about maybe having to change up the materials that we have for winter maintenance, including straight salt. So that will require a new way of storing it, which will have a new building. So we're working that into the master plan.
Well, we've gone through 5 ice storms this
Exactly.
winter.
Weather's changing. Yes. Public Works capital, that includes the 2 trucks. Frightening, but that's.
It is.
Yeah.
But if you look at the amount of capital we're investing in and how we could keep our tax rate stabilized, I think the program that we're running from renting from ourselves and using our reserves is working. Culvert materials will have to go up.
Culvert materials, are we looking at enlarging the size of culverts, not just replacing at the same size?
Depends where they are. I have been doing that, like on the, like Sunset Cove, Bear Creek. I really upped that culvert from what it was. Same with Bella Hill, Lana Ski Hill. Like those ones driveway culverts, basically are gonna stay, depending on the flow, but that's something I assess culvert by culvert. But yeah, I mean, if I think that,
Because the drainage seminar that I attended for the township, they said that you're planning on putting an 18-inch culvert, better figure around 24 or 30.
right, I mean, some ditches can handle it, some can't, that's the problem.
That's the trouble, but said with the storms we're going to get,
Right.
increase your culverts.
And yeah, like we probably went up twice the size, and we use plastic on Sunset Cove, which handles double, triple the flow of Delmax culvert, the same size.
Yeah, good.
Health and safety materials is a new category for this year as well, so we have $8,000, so that goes back to the signage and things that we're going to use. Reserve for road was listed in our capital forecast. And reserve check garage. Propane we increased because although we have a nice new furnace system in the garage and nice new fans, the garage does not maintain heat because it has no insulation values any longer. So everything stays the same. Insurance, I increased insurance substantially because we're going to have 2 brand new trucks. And we have the excavator. It's going to go up. Garage materials, we kept relatively the same. Dust control materials, we kept the same. Rating, the same.
That operations and patrol, maybe I missed it, but what's it entail?
That's for our operations superintendent, that's our salaries.
That's just how- okay.
And it's for patrol, and it's for the different.
Yeah, I didn't know, and some of it for the snow. stuff.
No, that's, they're all through. We have different labor categories all through. We have any other changes? Look at the rental. So the grass mowing rentals, that's the roadside cutting, but we were going to look at getting some prices for that this year.
I'm gonna put our,
Did better last year.
yeah, yeah, you just had a new guy, everybody's changing over.
We know what these new guys are like.
Fine materials and labor were increased because we'll be doing different signage and the road directional signage and the stickers and the things like that that we talked about. Snow plowing, we increased the labor and the rental rates because we do a lot more. And we're anticipating spending on OSIP and gas tax projects, so that will be the Bear Creek project.
Birch Grove.
Birch Grove project is included in both of those, so we just split it out for reporting purposes. So overall, with all of that, Public Works budget went down 1%. Community center rents. Pardon?
That's usually the one that goes up, isn't it?
Stand right here.
But we did get quite a bit in grants this year, so that was good. Community center rentals, we brought that down. Fitness center memberships, but we brought that down. We're hoping it'll increase as things start to open up again. So Canada Day, Bottle Drive revenue, recreation event programming with the new programs for recreation, which are happening. More playground grants of 62,720 and fund reserve to make up the remainder. Museum revenues, we kept the same, some have gone up because we should have a full season this year. Expenses for recreation. The reserves we talked about for the community center and fitness center. Heat and propane. We share the heat and propane here with fire station 1, so they cover some of the costs. Maintenance will continue to be high. Insurance has increased from 7 to 10 because we will have playground to cover. Fitness center, everything will stay the same. Dock and boat launch reserve, you'll see on the next section, and recreation event programming, because of the new programs that are happening. The playground and repairs to boat launch are new. Bank supplies, we actually lowered that a little bit. I think we're looking at getting hopefully a grant to work forward with that. Page 11, there was one amount that I missed for the EI for each, but that was for $250. So we'll be okay there. And museum, the only larger increase there is for the manager salary because we adjusted the season. We have the reserve amount that we didn't have previously. Everything else seems to be close. The office supplies went up. There were several small items that we were going to get. There were lights and there were different things for there. And then garden. And the library still hadn't given me their levy amount, but she told me to estimate 1%, so that's what I did. Is our draft budget for 2022.
Just makes me shudder when I see some of the things like telephone for that, telling you, no, what are you getting for it? You know,
Insurance.
like the command of halls about the same, you know, but you gotta have it for safety. But it's just, what are you
Never get
getting?
used.
So the council doesn't have any concerns with this budget. We can move forward to a final adoption at the next council meeting if we're all in agreement.
Good.
That's all.
Thank you, Chris. And you and staff. We come out at 2.2.
Well thought
Pretty
of.
good.
I'll be interested to see how my neighbor does tonight in Blossom. So yes, thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Yes, that takes us tonight to number 18. You've gone through this, as I have. We've got a written submission from Harold and Kyle Wallace.
Yes.
And we have our information that we gathered at the last public meeting. And I guess if we go to page 3. About right, Chris. Our reason for this, okay, we respectfully request the council reconsider reposting a notice of a public open house later this spring for public input before any decisions made by council to amend or to not amend section 3.44 of zoning bylaw 2020. A reason for this request that the notice of a public open house that was provided to every taxpayer within the township of Nipissing in January 2022 has critical information omitted. Fortunately, we did not include SLR's shoreline limited residential and that differs from the wording on the township's website. Thus, all property owners reading the newsletter would not be informed, especially those with limited internet access, that we were considering having trailers on limited, or yeah, shoreline limited residential. So all the people, we talked about having it on the shoreline, because that didn't get through. They haven't been, actually had the opportunity to come and say, no, we don't want them. Or yes, we welcome trailers with open arms. So if you,
We had SR and we should have had S.
Well, we had SR here in our notice, but in the notice that we placed on the website and the wording of the actual change to the zoning bylaw draft, we included SLR as well.
Well, so you're proposing another open house?
so next steps are option one. As Tom and I both shake our heads, wonder how we ever got into this. Anyway, option one, if we maintain the current provisions, which limits it from anything near water and only in rural, we're good to go. But all those people that besieged us last summer to amend the provisions of section to permit travel in tent trailers on shoreline residential and limited shoreline residential, we have to have another public meeting.
Yes, and a lot of the people that were at the meeting were from that zoning, right?
LSRs.
There's 8 of them there with one group of trailers or something.
Yep. So, I mean, we flogged this horse. I can't put it any other way, but legally, if we're looking at any chance of looking at option two, next step, another public meeting, because we have to give everyone their say for LSR.
Originally, we were looking at rural.
Just
Just
yep,
rural.
yeah.
And we, because of import, we looked at
open it up,
DSLR
because so
and
many
that.
people, yep. Now, we could do this just before a council meeting. As long as John Paul doesn't put anything else on that night at 6. No committee of adjustment, but we could just say, because we've done this, I don't know if we're gonna catch anybody more. So you
If they
say,
Come back, we have their input, and we use it.
We can, and also we're ready, we're almost ready to do our spring newsletter, so if we wanted to put it in and put a meeting in April, we could probably circulate for that for the 6 to 6:30.
I think in all fairness, we have to.
I
Be
agree.
transparent.
So
And
6
again,
to
the people
6.
did come out.
Yep.
And they had their arguments, so we have to include them.
So 6 to 6:30 or 5:30 to 6:30.
I think 5:30 to 6:30 would be safer.
We got there to give an hour.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so,
we would have it here.
yep,
Just before.
yeah, and then they can come in. They can come in and see us.
And how much public time do we have to give to the public?
John Paul, is there
This one, like 20 days, we should get.
20.
at least 20.
So if we look at the April 26th meeting, that's the last meeting in April, because we move forward. That gives us time to put out the newsletter, put it out there, have it before that meeting at 5:30 to 6:30, and council can make a decision at that council meeting.
Yeah, plus hopefully that time of year, weather's better for some of the people coming up.
Yeah, well, we also have a Zoom option,
Yes, that's right.
so we try to accommodate everyone to come into the meeting, or
Mhm.
they can write in, there are several different options.
We certainly give the people lots of chance to speak, but I
Yep.
think we still have to go forward with another one.
I agree.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Everybody's gonna have their say.
Yeah.
Um, Which one?
I think we'll try for April 26th. That gives us about a month to get.
Yeah, to get the 20 days in.
When's the newsletter going out?
So.
Like I said, it has to be in timing, so they receive it before.
So 5:30.
So we'll try and have the draft ready for council approval at the 29th meeting. And that puts it out. First week of April.
Okay, that, yeah, first week of April gives people.
That way we get it.
Yeah,
out.
time to organize their own.
Almost a month, it's 26, 5 days.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, it's gone on for a while.
More work for you, but thank you for doing that. Okay, so those are our next steps. We can go on to correspondence. The first one is support request from Powassan Agricultural Society. And if so, we would put that on the next meeting if we give them the same 100 that everybody gets. So it sounds like Powassan Fall Fair to go. So they have something to do Labor Day weekend. Great, now. Next one, you'll notice the ministry's got back to us regarding the request. And they're looking at it.
I was wondering if thoughts come up to you and I've been calling the Commander Hall about the hamlet of Commander. We should be looking up 522. It's amazing the traffic. on
Is it still 80
522.
right through the
I'm
village?
shocked at that, but it's still.
Yeah,
really
because
shocked.
nobody travels 80 through the village there. They travel at $1.10 through the
That's right.
village.
So if we lower it, I'm hoping they might start going at 80.
Because you have the people coming out of the Nixon Road, you have people coming out of the museum or the Commander Hall and all those houses.
If you
Um,
look
Wasatch
at-
Road.
Yeah, if you look at Highway 94, there's several sections between there and Highway 17 East that are down to 60, all through there. Wherever there's
Oh, yeah.
a few houses, it
That's
drops.
the
immediately to
Bonfield
60.
turnout at Dunny store.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
where Vic lives. Come on, give me a
Well.
break. Yeah, he's on 94.
Well, there you go.
So we can have a resolution on the next agenda.
Yeah.
Request on it.
Yeah, they're coming out. Why not look at both spots?
And what would you like? it
Like the
lower
rest
to?
of the museum and that, they come up that hill
Yeah.
and around on the curve,
What would you like the request to lower it to?
it's down to even 60 or 70.
60, I
We'll
think.
try
that's
to
what
shoot
we're-
Yeah, yeah.
Over 60,
because then they'll probably come back and give you a 10.
So that's a good idea. And that was part of our discussion about in number 6 today. Nobody drives up 522 at the speed limit. And I had to come in from there hauling some lumber a while ago. And I was at the speed limit and they were honking the horns and going by me. And so when we talked about backing onto that, it's fast and it's not ours. And, you know, so I think it's great if we can do that for the hamlet.
And when 69 highway closes, the traffic there increases.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's 522.
Yep.
I remember the last one they did. Yeah, it was bumper to bumper on that highway. And they weren't going slow.
So the next one, number 3. And all we have to do is circulate this. It's not in our township, but it's a cross. And so if you, it'll be in the office and we have all seen it.
Yeah.
And this is for Mr. Deemer. And then the minutes of the Town of Prairie Sound EMS Advisory Committee. And that's where basically minutes they came up with, we already have their budget, whatever, from the EMS. Number 5, a letter from Danny Whalen. And this is already ongoing, the Northern Ontario Transportation Task Force. And North Bay's upset because in the original, nobody from North Bay's on the task force. And so now they're trying to change that. But this has got a lot of information on news lately about Highway 17 for laning, the drive-by lanes, 2 lanes, so.
They're doing that to Highway 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or up to Lister.
Yeah.
And the other, are they into the railroad part of it too? Because they're talking about very few stations if the Ontario North line opens up.
I'm sure they are. Yes, they are. They are for sure, because I know Karina Moore's on that thing and she's the head of ONTC. And the first time they did it, of course, was on a train going to Toronto. They started in Cochrane. So they're looking at it on our behalf. Accommodation tax and where? On the Bruce Peninsula. So a municipal accommodation tax. I don't think you want to do that.
No, we don't want to.
Okay. I mean, if you want to shut every tourist place down in the area. Next one, Township Nipissing Cemetery Committee meeting. The minutes.
I didn't print it, but you had 2 minutes.
I did.
It's in there, it's where it's.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. And that's why I didn't receive any emails. Yeah.
Count your blessings.
No, the original mail out that had gone out
Yes.
didn't have your proper email. So anything I got in, I tried to forward to you as we got it to keep you in the loop.
Yeah.
And the last is about interesting Northern Development Mines Natural Resources regarding seeking input about the use of floating accommodations on waterways over Ontario's public lands.
Well, this is households. This is primary dwellings, I think is what they're leaning towards.
Or people buying boats and then living on them.
Converting them and living on them. Yeah.
Right,
Well, not necessarily boats, but floating houses.
yeah,
Floating houses.
Yeah, anything.
One guy bought a sailboat, and he lives in a sailboat. Never leaves the dock.
Well, it was a huge old one when I was up on North Sudbury on the lake I was on. And it was there from the time the snow came off. And we took it out when the snow started. And it was a big old scallywag and we found it was so old and beat up and I lived on it.
Lucky it didn't sink.
Yeah.
Do
so
we have any, you know, about by from the lake? that
we have nothing at this time. But if you have any comments regarding this, and my only comment is, there's no pumping stations around here.
No.
So if you're gonna build something on the lake, it floats, where are you gonna pump it out? You know,
Yeah.
so that would be the comment that I would make.
Mhm.
I'm sure that anybody living on a shoreline would lose their mind if they plan to do this.
Yeah. Unless they were really, we're gonna pump it out, we're gonna check you, everything like that, but they're gonna move,
They'd have to have a certificate of pumping that
Yeah.
they could show, and they would have to.
It is happening though. I see it, I see them advertised. Darby and Beesmith, they are
It's
advertising.
huge on
Yeah.
Great Slave Lake, no less, and you'd think, well, they got ice like
Yeah,
7 months out of the year up there, but they do it.
it will come here. I'm telling you, it's going to.
That's something that.
I think.
The sewage is the big.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just a big thing.
Yeah, and that's why we've always, in our township, that's why we've always said you can't live in a boathouse.
Mhm.
Because again, people build boathouses.
Yeah.
And they've done it in the Muskokas. And I see them when we get our sales sheets, whatever, the weekend, $1 million for a boathouse. But it is accommodation, so I don't think, we don't see that yet, but
Not yet.
definitely the floating.
Yeah.
Well,
that
I
would be a
believe,
concern.
I believe that's why the ministry is throwing that out there to get everybody aware.
Yes.
But at some point, there is going to be a regulation. There almost has to be.
There will. So otherwise, with correspondence, you will note that and forward that. And, okay, thank you. And we'll. So I need a mover and a seconder to accept the correspondence. Sorry, I went. Moved by Councilor, so it's number R 2022-59, moved by Councilor Moore, second by Councilor Marchant. That we accept the correspondence as presented. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Statements of accounts, and we both got an education today, because I wasn't looking in the right place either. So we're gonna learn.
Yep. Thank
Yep.
you.
It's a poor day, I don't learn something. So it's number R 2022-60. I'll get a mover and a seconder, and then if there's any questions on the accounts, we can ask. So Councilor Kirky and Councilor Scott.
On the outside, it was pretty clean, nothing jumped out this week.
Well, this is where I'll ask if anybody has a question. See, I too didn't understand when it said general ledger, that amount, so I read the next line that said. Okay. So any comments or questions on the general accounts? Seeing none, it's number R 2022-60. Moved by Councilor Kirky, seconded by Councilor Scott. Statement of accounts dated March 2nd, 3rd, and 7th, 2022, totaling $150,164.86 be approved. All in favor? Agreed. Okay. The time when we get to the highlights. With number 2022-61 is the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council. Mover and the seconder, Councilor Marchant and Councilor Moore. Thank you. Number R 2022-61, moved by Councilor Marchant, seconded by Councilor Moore, that we pass bylaw number 2022-16, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on March 15, 2022, read the first, second, and third time, and passed this 15th day of March 2022. All in favor?
Later package next week.
We will.
Try.
We're back on schedule, so it'll be later for sure.
We were at a meeting with this long time.
No, it's March break to boot.
Why should it end?
It's gonna end because somebody's gonna move in second.
That was pretty fast, Steve.
Gladly.
Councilor Kirky and Councilor Moore. They moved that with number R 2022-62, moved by Councilor Turkey, seconded by Councilor Moore. The meeting be adjourned at 9:03 p.m. Next regular meeting will be held. Too short speech from today. March 29. All in favor?
Doesn't give you a whole lot of time to build a paper.
No. Yeah, I know.